Welcome to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may have missed, with your hosts AJ Kuti and Jason Gordon. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may not have prepared you for. As always, I am AJ, and sitting across from me, Jason. Jason, how you doing today?
Killing it, AJ.
Again with the killing it.
Yep, it's been a busy week, man, and we're recording on a Friday, so I feel like I've made it. I made it to the end of the week. So
yeah, you feel like you've made it to the end of the week. This is my last week of freedom before my semester begins as a student.
Yeah, before the pain begins, right?
Yeah,
How's this semester looking for you?
So we got another, obviously, accounting class. So we're going to be dealing with financial accounting, which is pretty interesting because, so the first semester we had managerial accounting, research and managerial accounting. The second semester we had audit, and then the third semester we're going to have financial accounting. And in managerial accounting, because I teach managerial accounting, I feel like I understood it enough, like the main topics. At least I'd heard the words, and I can kind of deduce kind of things that's going to happen, or understand what they're trying to explain. But in audit, I don't teach audit. I don't have any experience in audit. Sadly, it's what my master's degree is concentrated in. But clearly, I didn't learn. Clearly, I didn't learn much there.
Just because you study it doesn't mean you know it, right?
Yeah, I felt like I was so out of the loop with the terms and the concepts that they were dealing. I was like, I'm completely lost. So I'm hoping in financial accounting, I'm going to go back to that where, because I teach it, I understand the terminology and understand how things work. Hopefully it's going to kind of come back to me where I feel more comfortable with it. Now, the interesting thing is, too, that I also feel, as much as I felt like I was completely clueless in audit, I felt like I did learn enough to where I may have found my dissertation topic, which is a big deal. Like, that's a huge weight off.
Huge deal.
Yeah, so I may have, as much as I did not like audit because I was so clueless, my dissertation may be in audit. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But I did enjoy the class. Maybe I enjoyed the professor more than, having the professor who he was, and the way his style and his structure made the class a lot more palatable, a lot more tolerable.
Good. Well, you are experiencing exactly what a lot of people who are listening to this podcast right now are experiencing, right? A lot of pain, a lot of pressure right before school starts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we jump into today's topic, I want to remind everybody, hit us up on the website, reschool'd.com. Check out our social media handles. And of course, as always, on your favorite podcasting platform, like us, give us 5 stars, 4 stars, however many you can give us. Send us messages on the website, that kind of stuff. We want to be in communication with you so we can talk about the things that you care about. Absolutely.
Well, today's episode is going to be a pretty interesting one for me because with somebody, and I've said this many times on various episodes in the past, with somebody that deals with ADHD, productivity is one of those things that is a struggle for me. And so we are going to do a tips and tricks series on productivity in college. I think it's one of those things in college where productivity is very, very important if you know how to create it, how to be productive and how to stay productive. But there's also a lot of hurdles that could challenge that. So I felt like this was probably a pretty good topic for us to deal with.
Absolutely. It's just a good life hack in general, not just for college. So yeah, let's jump into it.
All right. Well, let's get the quick question first. Let's get that out of the way. Grade yourself, A to F scale, on your ability to be or stay productive in college.
On my ability, I'll give myself a 95.
Jesus.
Because there were times when, I had a lot going on and I was productive. And I'm proud of that. It got me through a lot, even when, things weren't looking awesome. But there are times when I was, I didn't have to be productive. And then my productivity went to crap, right? So that being said, I've seen both sides of the coin. But my ability to be productive, very high. Whether I always stay productive, that ebbs and flows. So I don't know. What about you?
I would say strictly, it's really interesting because of the times of my life as I was going through college. So undergrad, wasn't married, master's, was married. Now in my doctoral, I'm older, married, and a family. So I had kind of 3 different phases in my life. And as I've noticed now, especially in my program now, that I wish I would have been more productive in my undergrad. I wish I would have seen the effect that productivity would have had because it's one of those things to me where it's a little bit more work up front, but you reap the benefits of not having to work as hard later. And so I would give myself probably, especially my undergrad, I probably would have given myself maybe a D. So somewhere in the 60s, because I did enough to get by, but I would not consider myself productive whatsoever. Now I feel like I'm way more productive because I'm using my time more wisely. And I think a lot of it has to do with the kind of the maturity aspect and like I said, I have a family now, so the distractions aren't there as much. So I would say I'm probably, granted I'm still dealing with ADHD, so I would give myself a strong B+ in my doctoral program. But yeah, it wasn't always good for me.
You know, you bring up something very interesting, this whole productivity thing and different times in our life and different phases and things like that. I catch myself all the time thinking back to college or law school or, different periods in my life, right? And I generally think about the good things because we always forget the bad things, right? We always remember back and think things were better than they were. But I also have a tendency to think about things that I wished I had done or taken advantage of. All the time. Happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times a week I think back and say, God, I wish when I was in college I would have done this. Usually it's something around travel or study abroad or trying this type of thing, like taking this class or having this experience, that type of thing. But that being said, I oftentimes, recently I've tried to think, why in the world didn't I do these things? I was extremely productive early on, particularly. And that was out of fear. I wanted to make sure I was going to do well, keep my scholarship, all that kind of stuff. So I became very productive, worked very hard, diligent, all that kind of stuff. And it paid off long term. It allowed me to get through times when I wasn't productive. But back to that whole thing of why didn't I do these things? And what I've kind of landed on recently is that at the time, we're always in the now, right? We're always thinking now, and we can't necessarily see into the future. We know what we want in the future, and we always seem like we're working towards that. We always say, I want this, I want this, I want this type thing. Then all of a sudden you get to the future, right? You get to where I am now. And if I looked at where I am now back then, I would say, wow, I've really, really made it in so many ways. I'm not wealthy or anything, but I certainly have an amazing job and life and everything built around it. And I enjoy that so much. And that was all I could have really hoped for back then. But now that I'm here, now I look back at that time and I start thinking of the things I missed and stuff, but I couldn't see it in the moment because you're always looking forward.
Yeah.
You're always looking towards that future thing, right? So, I think most people who are listening right now, they have no idea where they're going to be in the future. They have aspirations, and all we're trying to do is tell them, they need to work towards it. They need to prepare for it. School has a part of that. Life experience has a part of that, all of these things. But at the same time, we sometimes forget that always living for the future and always working towards that, you start to lose some of the now, right? You start to,
for sure,
and you don't even realize it. So anyway, I know I'm just babbling on about, this reality that we're in. So
see, I'm on the other side though too.
What's that?
I was going to say, based on what you're saying, I felt like I was always on the other side where I was looking too much for the now and not enough for the future. Like I felt like I was on the opposite ends of the spectrum for you because, and this is even now, because as you were talking about that, I was thinking, okay, do I have an example of that? And even now in my doctoral program, I have great examples of that because the end of my summer semester where we had to write a 15-page research paper, just the front part, so 15, 20 page of the intro, the lit review, the proposed methodology and such. During that time, I've known about this paper. We know about the paper at the beginning of the semester. We don't have to get our topic approved until about midway through the semester, which I already had my topic approved. And then, let's see, 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks prior to the due date, we went to the beach. well, as a family, we always take a family vacation to the beach. Just myself, my brother, my parents, all of us. We go down to the beach, and I thought, okay, well, that'd be a good time for me to, because while they're down at the beach or the pool or whatever, I can be up in the room working on some of this to go ahead and get it started, and maybe get the intro and the proposed methodology side done. And I get there, and I'm like, I'm not. Productivity is right out the window because I'm at the beach. Everybody's having fun. And I got exactly squat done on that paper. And then I get back and I'm thinking, oh, crap, now I got a week and a half to write this whole paper, which, by the way, too, I had a topic and then I realized there's a good reason why the topic that I picked hasn't been done yet. And that's because it's very difficult to do, like super difficult to do. So I also had to change my topic on the fly. And so of the week and a half that I had to go, I think all of Monday was just me finding another topic to pivot to.
Have you never heard the phrase low-hanging fruit?
Well, yeah, that's very true.
You got to find that low hangers, man.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is like, all I could think of is I could have used that week to do something. And I didn't do, like I said, I didn't do squat. I barely opened my computer. But I was more in the now, wanting to have fun with everyone. And to a point, like you said, like there are certain things where even putting in the work right now for the future, I would much rather spend some of that time with my family, spend some time with kids, because I'm not going to get that back no matter what I do. And I'm, God knows, from my history, from undergrad, master's, and now doctoral, I apparently am the king of writing papers in a week. Because
that's your specialty.
Apparently, because I can't do it ahead of time. My productivity, I struggle with that, getting my focus on that. So I think I'm on the opposite end of you. I think more now instead of the future, and I should really be thinking of the future to some degree.
Well, good. We can talk to both sides of it.
Yep. All right, well, let's get into the main topics.
Yeah.
And the first one, the obvious one, is what do we mean by being or staying productive? Like, I guess a better question would be, what's the difference between being productive and being busy? If that makes sense.
Well, you jump on that one first. I want to hear from you. What do you think the difference is?
Well, to me, it's always been the work smarter versus work harder argument. So, being productive is all about working smarter because you're taking the time that you have, but you're actually getting something accomplished. So it's more work with a purpose. Whereas busy is you're just working hard. Like you're just doing something to keep your mind, busy. You're constantly doing something. Just because you're busy, to me, doesn't mean you have to be productive. I know plenty of people that are busy that are not productive. Like, I worked all day. What have you done? Nothing.
Most people are busy without being productive, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, and that's and you can also be productive but not be busy. Like that's one of the things that they've taught us in our program is, when you're working on your dissertation, which by the way, if you've never heard of a dissertation, it's a lengthy document. It is a research paper that's anywhere between, depending on where you're doing it at, it could be anywhere between 100, 150 to 300 pages. And you have the expectation is you have roughly a year to complete it. Sometimes it takes more than that, depending on different factors. But one of the things they constantly tell us is to stay focused enough on it to get something done every day. No, don't look at it as, I've got to write 3 pages today. I've got to do this today. Like they said, if it's nothing more than you wrote a paragraph or you edited a paragraph, that's productivity towards your dissertation. And that doesn't mean you have to be busy all day. You just have to get something done. You got something accomplished. And so that's kind of how I look at it.
The root of the word says you produce, right? And
that's true.
Oftentimes, busyness doesn't produce much. Sometimes you go down roads that honestly detract from, that take away from whatever you had going, right? So, I mean, that's the difference for me, right? I see people, particularly places I've worked in the past, I've seen people just do things all day long, but what did they really accomplish? There was nothing checked off the list or very little checked off the list, but they did things all day. So, in my mind, productivity has a product, a result, and busyness has activity, not necessarily tied together. You don't have to be busy to be productive. And, busyness does not necessarily lead to productivity. So anyway, yeah, that's the way I see it.
And I would say too, speaking for the listeners who may be dealing with ADHD, productivity is a hard thing for somebody with ADHD because in your head, you're thinking you're doing the right stuff. You're actually being productive. And then, like you said, you go down a rabbit hole somewhere and your mind goes somewhere. So you're looking up, for me, if I'm looking up a paper and then all of a sudden there's something I'm trying to figure out the definition for or some kind of explanation for, I may go down to another website to find it or another kind of research article, which leads me to another one. And then all of a sudden now I think I'm doing something productive, but in reality, I'm just I'm wasting time. I'm busy, but I'm just wasting time. So ADHD, it's a struggle.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, your example kind of begs the next question. Why is it so particularly difficult to maintain productivity in college versus in other aspects of your life?
Well, I'll let you do this one because I did the last one first.
Well, honestly, for me, the reason it's difficult for productivity in college at times, if you're passionate about what you're doing and you see an end in sight, and I'd say everybody motivates differently, right? Some people don't need an end game. They don't need a finished product. They don't need that. They're motivated by other things, right? Whether it's the comfort or the people they're around or just the activity that they're doing is engaging, right? So they don't need to be motivated. But for most people, I would say the work you're doing in college, you need some level of motivation there that oftentimes does not exist. Getting an A or a B or a C at the end of a semester when you don't see that translating to the rest of your life isn't a huge motivation sometimes. Lots of times people have their parents pushing them really hard or expectations from family members or friends and things like that, but lots of people don't have that. So if you find yourself on your own and you don't have others pushing or pulling you, whichever way that goes, you don't see, that, hey, I'm definitely going to graduate school. So if I don't make an A or a B, then it's going to look bad on my transcript and that's going to make it more difficult. If you don't see those things, you're like, what does it matter if I pass? I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to go on. I'm going to get a job, start a business, do whatever I'm going to do. So in my mind, college is work without an obvious reward.
An immediate reward.
Yeah. And if you can't see that, how do you stay motivated? I mean, you basically have to manufacture that. And everybody knows that productivity, right, comes from directed effort. Yeah. That can be very efficient effort or it can be inefficient effort. You're just busy, not very productive. But productivity is generally the result of effort. And you have to motivate yourself towards that effort and all the things that come with productivity. We'll give some tips here in a minute about how you stay productive or how you become productive or whatever. But once again, you got to be motivated to do those things. And so for me, that's it, right? You don't have the traditional motivating sources that you would have, let's say in a job, right? In a job, you do more work, you might shine in the boss's eyes, you might get data boys, you might get a promotion, more money, better position, all those things. There's a motivation there. You don't necessarily have that in college, right? I'm trying to think about the individual things that motivate people. I mean, if you need recognition, you might end up on the dean's list or something like that. But I mean, in your mind, have you ever looked at a college's dean's list to see whose name was on it?
Nope.
Not even I have
once.
Not either. So, I mean, and I intentionally, any students that I teach, I do not look at their records or transcripts or anything like that to see their grade point averages and stuff like that, because it might cause me to, and again, see them as in a light that's not accurate. It might cause me to see them as a very productive student when they're not, or it might cause me to see them as a slack student when they're not. So anyway, I never look at it, right? I never, so that being said, right? I mean, what's your motivation? I don't know. Yeah. What does it mean?
The difficult thing for me when I was in school, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for a lot of students when it comes to productivity, is you go into a semester. Now, I'm talking from an average student's perspective. So I'm not talking about part-timers. I'm talking about somebody you're going to school for full time. So at minimum 12 hours, so 4 classes probably. But let's say 5. So you're taking 5 classes. You're probably also working Or if you're an athlete, you've got sports that you're having to deal with. You've got other things going on top of maybe you have a relationship, but you also have family potentially that you're going to go back home and see every so often. And you have a ton of stuff going on. And then you have 5 classes that give you 5 syllabi. And you have to worry about all the assignments and all the work and all the studying and all the tests that are coming up. And contrary to popular belief, we do not, all the professors don't get together and go, hey, let's all give the test this one week. It just happens. It just so happens to be that way. But you have all this stuff going on, and you can have a massive feeling of being overwhelmed, not knowing where to go, which then leads to that kind of down the road of not being motivated. Kind of going back to what you're saying, it can really lead to a lack of motivation when you have no idea what to do or where to begin or how you're ever going to get it done in that time. And so to me, especially again from somebody who's dealing with ADHD, that really, really hurts my productivity. And I think I've said this on a podcast episode before, but like my wife has had to learn how to deal with that. When you're married to somebody with ADHD, you have to learn kind of what deficiencies come with that and how to get past that. So if my wife ever told me to come clean my closet, I would be so overwhelmed. Whereas if she said, okay, go pick up all of your shirts, then she gives me that starting point. And I have the quick success of doing that. And then she'll go pick up all your pants or shorts. I'll do that. And once she learned that, it became a lot easier for her to understand how my mind worked. And so that overwhelming feeling, again, comes from class, and it does take a moment for you to get past that feeling of overwhelming, and so you can get that motivation back. So that would be why it's so difficult for me.
Yeah. Well, I hear you. I mean, I find myself all the time. I've got a dozen small tasks to do in different areas, and they all need to get done about the same time. And you don't know where to start, and you're just analyzing and saying, what do I do? What do I do next? What do I do next? And you just sit there and you end up doing nothing because you can't figure out what's next. Yeah. And God, if there's anything about college, you'll have 100 things going on, right? Every class is something different. Every organization is something different. Everything is just, it's like a million different little funnels, right?
Yeah. So, well, let's get into our tips and tricks now. So, I've got some and you've got some. Look, you go ahead and start it. What's your first tip or trick when it comes to staying productive in college?
Well, anybody who's listened to me on this podcast for a while knows that I'm a huge schedule person, right? If nothing else, if you break up your time, you allot time for the things that you know are important first. If you know you really need to study for that exam, you block that off and you make that the time where you're just going to do that. It kind of puts blinders on so you won't end up doing the other things that we just talked about, the million other things. If you know you need to go to the gym, you block off that 1 hour, right? You know what times you're going to be working and you know what times you're going to be in class. All that time is dedicated, and that's what you're going to do during that time. So if you can keep a managed schedule like that so that you're not just saying, well, I'm floating and next, I don't know, I'll figure it out then, whatever kind of pops up, because that is the key to losing productivity, just waiting to see what pops up and I'll do that then. So anyway, that's number one for me, all about the schedule, right? So what about you?
That's one I had to struggle with. And even today, I still struggle with because I'm the world's worst at scheduling. I'm still, even at the ripe age that I am at, I still struggle with forward thinking when it comes to scheduling. My first one kind of works hand in hand with that, with scheduling, and that's the use of a checklist. And more specifically, and I don't know if this is a legit term for this checklist, but I look at it as a micro level checklist. So one of the things, I think it came from the Navy SEALs, but it's their phrase, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And I kind of look at that when it comes to my checklist, especially at the beginning of the semester. So at the beginning of the semester, when I get all my syllabi, I go through and I create a checklist, and it takes me a good while. It's not quick. And that's where that phrase comes from. It takes me a while. It's pretty slow, but what it does is it creates this checklist of all the things that I need to get done in the time that they need to get done. And it allows me to have that starting position. It allows me to say, okay, this is the stuff that I need to get done. These are my checklists for this week. And it makes it faster. So where it was at the beginning where I was looking at it going, okay, I've got to get this done, and it was taking me all week to do these assignments for the week, now I'm getting done much earlier, although it does take me a little bit of time up front. Now, what is a micro checklist versus just a regular checklist? I look at it as doing individual responsibilities, different, and even that, like it's sub responsibilities. So, like if I was, for instance, the let's say my syllabus said this week I had to read chapters 1 through 4. Well, I wouldn't put read chapters 1 through 4 on my checklist. I would put read chapter 1, read chapter 2, read chapter 3, read chapter 4. Mm-hmm. And if they were large chapters and they had subsections, then I would even break it down into subsections. If I'm writing a research paper, I do this now. When I'm writing a research paper, I put write the intro, write the lit review, write the methodology. If I have to do discussions for the week, then I write discussion for this person's post and write discussion for this person's post, whoever's post it is for that week. I'm going to itemize the heck out of it, because what it does is it gives me that stepping stones for what I need to get done for the week. And even more importantly, again, from somebody who deals with ADHD, and this is something that's been proven many a times that people with ADHD need, is it gives us the small successes. Mm-hmm. It gives us the that's the motivation we need. There is no better motivation for somebody with ADHD than being able to physically check off a box or strike a line through it or whatever you want to do. But it's not like you just have I don't like doing the whole bullet point lists. Mm-hmm. I like to actually have the check box, because it gives me the simple satisfaction of being able to put a check in that box to say, I am done with that.
Let me ask a question real quick.
Sure.
Do you ever find yourself on your checklist going back and adding things that you've already done just so you can line it out or check it off?
Oh, for sure.
Isn't that fulfilling?
Yes, because I'm like, it makes me look like I've done more. And you better believe, like, if there's something that I forgot to put on the checklist but I had to do, I'm going to go back and put it on there, and then I'm going to check it off immediately. My checklist, I have my checklist broken down into the classes, the type of assignment that we have to do, the title of the assignment, and then I have 2 columns. Well, I also have obviously my checklist column, so the check box, but I have 2 columns. That's the official due date and my planned due date. So what I personally want to do, how fast I want to get it done, versus the official one, which is what the teacher's expecting. And obviously I'm trying to get my personal ones done as quickly as I can so I can front load everything, knowing that most of my end of my semester is going to be taken up by either writing a paper, doing a project, or something like that. But that I cannot, and I didn't do this in undergrad. And in undergrad, had I done this, it would have been a complete game changer for me. But the checklist, I live by it now. And it's come very handy in more than one way. I mean, even to the point where, because it's so quick to get to, like I can look at it and if the professor says something, I say, let's do this day, because I took the time the first day. So our semester begins Monday. Mm-hmm. So our semester will have already begun when you the listeners hear this episode, but it starts this coming Monday. I will spend all day Monday not doing a single assignment or any kind of reading, but my whole Monday will be focused solely on making my checklist for the entire semester. Mm-hmm. And that's my tip for being productive and staying productive for the semesters. Go ahead and just take the time to do it.
Yeah, it obviously works. Well, then I'm going to take, so I said schedule, you said, micro level checklist. Well, both of those are pretty micro level in itself. I'm going to say the overarching thing that's obvious from the tips we just gave. You got to be organized.
That's where I'm messing up.
Right. Creating a schedule is organization. Creating a checklist is organization, right? You're just trying to organize your life. I mean, everything from, I always thought it was funny to hear about Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, how Steve Jobs wore the exact same outfit every day because he didn't have to think about anything. Mark Zuckerberg, once again, exact same thing. He kept a closet full of T-shirts, so he didn't have to think about what he was going to wear every day. It's like, your mind is full of so many things, and if you have to think about those things, then it takes away from other things you can be doing. So to the extent, I mean, and that's an extreme example, obviously. I'm not saying everybody should just wear black turtlenecks every day. But
God, no, I'd sweat to death.
yeah, right. I mean, especially in Georgia heat. Whew,
Yeah.
that'd be rough. But to stay organized, right? To make certain you're planning out things. You know you're going to need breakfast in the morning. You know if you're going to need some exercise during the day. You know if you're going to need some entertainment or time with your loved ones and things like that. To the extent that you can organize those things, right? Part of that scheduling, putting things on checklists that you know you have to get done. Other things are just having the resources necessary, right, for that. If you know you got to cook, well, have a stock kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Have the spices you need. Have that kind of stuff so you don't have to, eat out. If you know you don't have much time, be able to call up Grubhub or Amazon Eats or whatever, Uber Eats or whatever type thing. So staying organized so you can manage your life. That's my high level. So I'm going to go with that one for my second tip. So what's your next one?
That's a good one because I struggle with that one so much. Like just from something I would give an organized person a heart attack if you saw my email inbox. Like I'm not organized whatsoever. And it's been years since I've had even my school email. It's been years since I've had since I started my job at the school, and I'm now trying to, actually the other day I went through and I was like, I'm going to try to be more organized. So I'm going to go try to organize my inbox. And then I got through maybe a month's worth. I'm like, you know what? This is just not working. And I just quit. I struggle with that so much.
How many unread emails do you have in your email, AJ?
Oh, now, okay. So that's something different because I will not. So on my phone, the worst thing for me, it gives me such bad anxiety is to have that red badge with a number over of unread stuff. I cannot handle that. I have to have a completely clean screen of no red badges, and I will open all of them. Every one of my emails, especially from school, unless it's just complete utter garbage like spam, which goes directly to my trash, I will open every single one of them and at least read a little bit of it. I can't handle the whole red badges. My wife she has hers, and she's got like 4,000 unread messages because she's got a bunch of her emails linked to a single app, and there's one that's just complete junk, and I can't. It drives me crazy.
My wife the same way. I see her screen and it's got thousands of emails.
Oh God!
On it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't. No.
Yeah.
Of course, she keeps a separate email for her work email, and she keeps that one better managed. But the personal email is whew.
Yeah, no, it drives me crazy. So, which leads me really nicely to my next one, and that's to implement some kind of automation where you can. This is one that you may not think about, and also let me preface this by saying too, when I say implement automation, I don't necessarily mean tech-based automation. You can have automations in a bunch of things in your life that have nothing to do with technology. But where you can start automating things, and again, it goes back to that phrase, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you take the time up front to get things planned out and automate it where you can, it makes your life kind of towards the tail end a whole lot easier. So when it comes to, just for example, emails, you can set up filters. You can set up filters to where it says, if you get this kind of email from this spam email or email address, it'll go directly into your trash. That's just something very simple you can do, and you don't have to worry about it taking the time for you to see it on your phone. And again, maybe it takes 2 seconds to do this, but it's just unnecessary for you to send it to your trash, to delete it. That's one example. You had mentioned one, and I was trying to figure out a good example of a non-tech automation, and then you mentioned it, and I think this was a brilliant one. And that is, you're talking about cooking. And if you're going to cook, have a stocked pantry. I think one of the best automations you can do is at least planning meals for the week. So that way, on the weekend, you can go get all your food that you need for the entire week. You're done. You don't have to go to the grocery store anymore that week. And then if you want to take it the next step, you can go ahead and meal prep. Go ahead and get your stuff meal prepped on Sunday. That means Monday through Friday, you are good to go, and it's going to be super easy, less time during what would essentially be the crunch time of the week. And so when you can automate those things, man, that is a great boost to where you can put your focus on other things. You're get productive in other areas.
That's a great tip. Excellent. Okay, jumping to my last one.
Right.
Got to limit distractions.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody like yourself, got ADHD, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I tend to be a heavily distracted person. I usually can't do any single thing for more than about an hour at a time before I have to go do something else and come back. I just get too distracted. I'll lose motivation. So, to the extent possible, if you're going to do something, eliminate the outside distractions. Put down your phone, turn it off. I feel certain that I would have been far less productive in college if I had access to the internet and social media and texting and everything all the time at my fingertips. I didn't even get my first cell phone until I was a sophomore or junior in college.
Jeez.
I was 20 years old when I got my first cell phone.
I was 16.
Right? I mean, well, don't get me wrong. A lot of people got cell phones
Yeah.
earlier than me, but I didn't feel like I needed it.
Yeah.
I didn't, and it was certainly something I didn't want to pay for.
Yeah.
So collectively, I just pushed it off, and I know it made me more productive because I had the things that I needed to accomplish right in front of me. Right? I was very organized in that way, and I didn't have all of the distractions. Okay, I lived on campus early on and things like that. It was very easy for me to put my head down and do the work. So there you go. Limit the distractions to the extent you can.
That would have been one of mine, because that is something that I deal with pretty much on a regular basis. And fortunately, technology has created ways to help you limit your distractions. I mean, look at Apple, and they're by far not even close to being a sponsor. If they want to sponsor, we're completely open. But they have their focus tab where you click on focus and it turns off all your notifications, and depending on how you set it, obviously. But it turns off all your notifications. It can limit the apps that you go on. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with that, and it kind of goes back to the automation side where all you have to do is click one button and it limits this accessibility to what would be distractions online. Mm-hmm. And that's something that is, I know a lot of people tend to like to say they like to listen to music when they do something. That's, depending on what you're doing, that's good. I thought I enjoyed studying with music. I learned it was a very big distraction when I listened to music that had lyrics. Mm-hmm. Now, if I listen to something like calm, where there's no lyrics, it's just the musical side of it, then yeah, it does bring me to a place of calmness. But I wouldn't say, if I can go into a quiet room where there's no TV, no distraction, no nothing, leave my phone outside, that's probably going to do better for me when it comes to my not being distracted. So yeah, the distraction is a big one, I think. And again, like you said, the cell phone is probably one of the biggest distractions we have.
Oh yeah. Cell phone for me. I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, as much as I use it and as important as it is in everybody's life, but if I could take away the ability to access the internet during certain parts of the day, if I could do that and not feel like that there's this obligation out there that I need to be tethered to my email, or that I need to be tethered to some of these other sites like Twitter or things like that I use. I don't communicate a lot on social media channels, but I check them a lot because that's how I get my updates about the world. And if I didn't feel tethered to that, I know I'd be a more productive person. There's no doubt about it. I know my mind would be a lot clearer. I know I'd get a lot less angry about things.
My wife did that. She got rid of all of her Instagram, all of her Facebook, all of her social media. The only social media she has is LinkedIn and Pinterest. And
good for her.
She said the week that she gave it up was she could physically and mentally tell a difference in herself from just giving it up, because all of the anxiety started going away, like you said, all the anger, because obviously nobody posts. Even if you see a bunch of happy stuff, you start to question it. That's just kind of the society we're in now. Mm-hmm. And it adds so much anxiety, so much animosity, so much anger to your life. And she just said, I'm done with it. And she got rid of it. And she said, after the week that she got rid of it, she said, after experiencing that week, she will never go back to it because of the difference that it made to her, and she felt it.
Well, I guess it kind of makes you live in the now, like we talked a little
Yeah.
about a little bit earlier, not living vicariously through somebody else, what they did in the past, or, that type of thing. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's
My
great.
last tip for the listeners, and this is kind of on brand for me because this is kind of where I stay. We've talked about scheduling, we've talked about organizing, checklists, the automation, the distractions, but mine, I don't want you to forget about the fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would call my last one. Is you don't want to get so hyper focused that you don't have fun doing it, because regardless of what many people may say or the way you view college is an experience. I think we've talked about this as, we said, what is a college career? Why do they call it a college career? But college is an experience on top of the learning side. It is also, you are growing. And in that growth, you're supposed to have fun. That's why they have all this fun stuff in college.
Mm-hmm.
The fraternities or sororities. We had an episode on that. You have the downtown parties, depending on where you're going. So you have the bars. You have sporting events. There's a lot of stuff that you can get. You have organizations that you can be a part of, the clubs you can be a part of. They're all fun in some regard, depending on what you define as fun. What is fun to you? And if you focus so heavily on the schoolwork side and being productive, you're going to, one, burn out, and two, you're going to look back and you're going to say, man, I did what I did, and I'm where I'm at now, but could I have gotten to the exact same place I am now and still been able to have that fun experience to some degree?
Mm-hmm.
I think with the last episode, I believe, is what we talked about, opportunity cost.
Mm-hmm.
It is the opportunity cost, the decision of what are you giving up to do this. So if you're always studying and so focused on the productivity of your class, what are you giving up? And to some degree, you are giving up the experience, the fun side of college. And I think that's such a big part of college. I grew up a lot in college, but I also had a lot of fun. And to the extent where, I did go to parties and I did go to the bars and I did do those kind of things. And I still managed to graduate. I still managed to get where I'm at right now. Could I have done better? Absolutely. Could it have made my life a little bit easier? Yeah, there's some things I could have done. I could have done the checklist. I could have front loaded my week so that I wouldn't have to make these hard decisions later in the week if they're going to be a party or whatever. But I still wouldn't change my experience whatsoever. Like I look back and thought, I lived it up. I had a lot of fun. I got a student loan when I didn't need a student loan, so I can go travel. And I paid for it. But would I have changed that? Looking back, would I go, I regret doing that? Now I shouldn't have done that. I don't know if I would go that far. Maybe not as much, but I don't know as far because, we've talked about in your love of travel and experiencing cultures. That was me, except you were disciplined and dedicated enough to work for that. I figured I was just going to take a student loan. But even though I took those student loans, I still experienced something that I probably never would have experienced had I not. And I would never take those away. So my last tip is to make sure you are putting fun stuff in there. It's the same way as if you're going on a diet. If you're going on a diet, I know there's people out there that say you should not do this. But if you're on a diet, I always think you should at least have a cheat meal once, every so often.
Or cheat snacks, right?
Cheat snack,
That you can
something
integrate.
it's a reward. Like it's a reward that you've been doing this, and it doesn't have to be once every week. Or if you're like me and you're on a diet, it's like once every day you get a cheat meal. But no, it's just a way to reward yourself for the hard work that you're putting in.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the intrinsic motivation, which you were talking about, the motivation side of what makes it difficult. That's more of like the extrinsic incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's necessary. So that would be my last tip is just don't forget about the fun.
That's a great one to end on because I think that kind of covers it, right? It's kind of where we started, right? Feel like you're missing out on things and you don't want to be in that situation.
For sure. Well, this is a great episode. I've loved this one.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this. This is fun talking.
Well, you got any parting words before we head out?
Just remind everybody, reach out to us, right? We want to hear from you. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. And like I say, if you've got a specific shout out or something like that, let us know. We'll bring it up on the episode. So anyway, that being said, you can always reach us at our website.
Yep. Well, it's been fun. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reschool'd podcast. Be sure to head over to reschool'd.com for news and other information on things we're getting into.